The two times on Sukkot when dancing is mandated. First is the Simchas Beis Shoeva, and the second is Simchas Torah. The davening, both Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, are called Zman Simchaseinu, but the focus of the dancing on Sukkot is quite different from that on Simchas Torah. The focus of Sukkot, both the mitzvah of taking the Daled Minim in the Beis Hamikdash and the Simchas Beis Shoeva, is a pasuk in the Torah, "Machtem lefnei Hashem Elokeichem shivas yom." Requirement to be joyful lefnei Hashem Elokeichem means in the Beis Hamikdash. And that, in addition to taking the Daled Minim in the Beis Hamikdash, Rambam brings this pasuk also as the source for the din of the Simchas Beis Shoeva, which, according to the Rambam, is not connected to the actual She'ivas Hamayim, as Rashi learns. Now, there's a machlekes the Rambam, Rashi, how you understand the simcha of the Simchas Beis Shoeva that they had in the Mikdash. According to the Rambam, it's a din in Simchas Yontiv of Sukkot, and the Rambam brings the halachas of Simchas Yontiv together, Simchas Beis Shoeva. And according to Rashi, it is an outcome of the Shoeva, the drawing of the water during Sukkot. Now let's try to understand what that was all about and what lesson it has for us. And then that we could understand the dancing in the Simchas Beis Shoeva. Then we'll move to Simchas Torah. So what did the Mishnah say at the end of the fourth parak in Sukkah? That they would draw water from the Shiloach, and it's a machlekes in the Mishnah how much? It's either 3 lug. 3 lug is a little bit over a liter. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, it was 1 lug, about 300 cc's. 2 cups of water. Standard plastic cup in Israel is 200 cc's. Not a lot. Right? But what's it all about? And then they would have a whole ceremony with the Leviim and with the Chatzaitzvus, and they would pour the water down into a whole corner of the Mizbeach. From there, the water would go down to the Shitin. The Shitin is the place underneath the Mizbeach. You have it today under the Dome of the Rock, I think it is, or the other one. And that's the place where, according to Chazal, Shemisham Nishtas Ha'olam, that's called the Evan HaShasiyah, where the world was established from that place. So what's the idea? What's the Simcha Sukkos, and what's the idea of taking water? And you don't need a lot of water. Like I said, a liter, a little bit more. According to Chazanish, 1.5 liters. Okay. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, 1/3 of a liter. 2, 3 cups, the whole thing. The Simcha on Sukkot is about Tahara. We went through Elul, Aseres Rosh Hoshana, Yom Adin, and we had not only Kapara, but we had Tahara on Yom Kippur. Ki b'yom hazeh yichaper aleichem l'taher eschem l'fnei Hashem titoru. And the fact that a person can clean himself off from whatever he did the whole year And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was willing to purify him and put him back to the place where he was a year ago. And it's not only where he was, but also in terms of his ability to have a pure relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the source of a tremendous amount, the ultimate joy in a person's life. That the one relationship, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which counts, you can put it back, and you can put it on restart. The yontif that the Kohen Gadol would make when he left the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he saw that it said, or he saw that the Chut Hashani turned white, was not so much because he got out alive, but because he was able to bring about Tahara for Klal Yisrael. Chavetz Chaim, it was known during the Avodah, during Musaf, when the Chazan would say the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol, and Kippur was the happiest time of the year for him. And I heard from Rabbi Leib Steinman that the reason for that is because the fact that a person could become Tohar is a source of tremendous joy. And that is the joy of Sukkot. So what's the relationship to water? If you notice, I mentioned this once in a different context, we talk about fire, we talk about Ish Kodesh. When we talk about water, we talk about Tahara. To become Tahar, you go into the mikveh, or if you need the Efer Para to become Tahar from Tumas Meis, it's again water that's sprinkled on a person. What is it about water that brings about Tahara? The side is that water is the original matter with which the world was created. How does Bereshit start? Bereshit bar Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. V'haaretz haisa tohu v'avohu. The world was one big empty place. V'ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamoyim. Water is the original matter. Geshem, rain. The word gashmius comes from the word geshem. That is matter. So when a person goes into the mikveh and he basically becomes at one with the waters of the mikveh, and that's why he has to be completely enveloped by the mikveh without a tiniest bit of a hair sticking out. If you have the person who needs to become tahar in a mikveh and has a little bit of hair, 1 millimeter of hair sticking out, the mikveh is not matayr him. Because water, the pure water of a mikveh, is a statement that we are returning our matter, our mayim, our geshem, to its original pure form. That's what Tahara is. L'tahir means to clean, to purify. What Kedusha is a different story. That's not for today. So when a person is Zoicha to Tahara, he's in the mikveh. He becomes at one with pure waters. And there's an interesting thing for those of you who learn Masechta Makis. If you have milk that's mixed into the water of the mikveh, if it looks like water, the mikveh is kosher. If it looks like milk, even though it is mostly water, the mikveh is not kosher. So the simcha of Tahara on Sukkot, the simcha of Sukkot is about the Tahara from Lifnei Hashem Titaru as a result of the Tahara of Yom Kippur. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us 4 days to get our act together, as it were, and to prepare for Sukkot. Now, there's an interesting halacha that the Gemara says that not everybody would dance by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Only the Chasidim, the Anshe Ma'isa. Why is that? Because the purer a person's body is, the more he is able, his limbs are able to express the true joy at being pure. I sometimes think, if you ever go up the block to Toldus Aaron, that is the epitome of the Simchas Beis HaShoevas here in Yerushalayim, the happiest city on earth. What's so special about that place? Because their way of life is such that they stay away from all the junk of this world. Like they don't have their own challenges. But a lot of the, let's call it externals, or external to the Jew influences, they keep out. And therefore their ability to have purity in their body is something which expresses itself on the days of Sukkot. And that's why there is a palpable joy over there the greatest ballet dancer cannot recreate. That's what I think. That's what I've been thinking since I've been going there for 45 years. Every year I go, including last night, there's something about it. Because they work on their Tara. Tara is not something that they focus on during Aseret Metshuva, but Tara is something that they focus on an entire year. But there's another point about Simchas Beis Shoeva, about the Simcha of Simchas Beis Shoeva. Most dinim of Simcha are not, this is something Rav Hutner points out, most dinim of Simcha are not tied to a specific place. A person gets married, you have to be Mesameach, Chassid Kala, wherever the case may be. Right? The person has Simchas Yontiv, you can have Simchas Yontiv wherever you are. The Simchas Beis HaShoeva has to be in the Beis HaMikdash. What's that all about? And there's a statement from Hillel. Gemara says in Sukkot Nun Gimel that when Hillel would rejoice in the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Hillel would say, Imani kan, hakol kan. And Rashi explains that Hillel was, of course, if I'm here, everyone's here. And Hillel was not talking about himself. He was, as it were, speaking what God thinks. Hashem says, if I am here, in other words, if you take my presence seriously, then Hakol Kan, all Jews are here. What does that have to do with the Simcha of the Simchas Beis Shoeva? And as we asked before, why is the Simcha of the Simchas Beis Shoeva has to be in the Ezras Nashim and in the Ezras Yisrael, in the Beis HaMikdash? Outside, it doesn't work. Why is that? It's only Simcha, right? But the point is that the Beis HaMikdash is the place where every Jew belongs. The Simcha of Sukkah, like the Gemara says in Sukkah, is Kol Yisrael Ru'uyim Leishe B'Sukkah Achas. The Gemara is discussing about owning a sukkah. If you have to own your own sukkah, like you have to own your own daled minim, or if you can sit in someone else's sukkah. And the Gemara learns pasuk at Naftes, I believe it is, Kala Ezrach Yisrael Yeshiv Sukkah, that the entire Jewish people, in theory, could sit in one sukkah, even though it's not going to be owned by everybody. But in other words, the point is that all Jews can be together. So after the Tara of Yom Kippur, after the rectifying, purifying oneself from a year of mistakes, comes a yontiv in which all Jews have a part. Just like the lulav and the daled minim, which all of you know, describe, among other things, different kinds of Jews, right? And they all have to be together. The arava, the hadas, the lulav, right? As the Mefarshim say, one is various levels, madregas in a person's kiyum mitzvahs, but they all come together. And if you're missing one of the minim, it's possible. The simcha of a Jew is only when he is part of Klal Yisrael. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, 6 words. Morasha kehilas Yaakov. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Knesset Yisrael, to the Jewish people as a whole. And only the Beis Hamikdash is the place which signifies this is the house of the Jewish people. And that is why the symbol of Simchas Beis Sheva, at the time the Beis Hamikdash existed, had to take place in the house of Klal Yisrael. And that is why when Hillel described Hashem talking, Anikan Hakol Kan, that's the expression. All Jewish people are here. This belongs, Simchas Beis Sheva belongs to all of us. The Simcha of the Tara of Yom Kippur. And what do? So we are basically taking water and pouring it back to where it all started. So the statement of the Simchas Beis Sheva is that we're telling Hashem, we're giving back the water, the matter, the geshem, the gashmias, our physicality, pure, like He gave it to us. That is the joy of Sukkot, and that is why the Gemara says that only Gedolei Chachmei Yisrael and Chasidim v'Anshe Mais were the ones who were dancing. Why? Because, as we know, there are different levels in a person's ability to do tshuva and a person's ability to do tohar, to become tohar. So the Chasidim and the Anshe Mais, the Gedolei Chachmei Yisrael, as the Gemara calls them, they were the ones whose dancing was real. Because their bodies, their hearts, their reality was pure. They had what to dance about. We could watch, we could be inspired, but we're not the same. And that is why the Simchas Beis Sheva in the Beis Hamikdash was, everybody was there. But the dancing were for those who were pure. That is the Simcha Sukkot. Both Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres are called in the davening Zman Simchaseinu. Right? They're both Zman Simchaseinu. So, what is Simcha Sukkot? Sukkot is called Chag HaOsif. But Chag HaOsif doesn't only mean that we gather in the fruits, the vegetables, the various agricultural produce. That's one piece of it. But more importantly is that Chag HaOsif is that Sukkot is the time you have 3 Yom Tovim. You have Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. So Sukkot is the third. And you have Rosh Hoshana, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So Sukkot is both the third of the Gimel Regalim, and it's the third of the Yom Tovim of Chodesh Tishri. And then comes Shmini Atzeres. What does the word Atzeres mean? Latzor means to hold together. In Hebrew, you stop because you, right? If you have a treasury, is called an otsar, that's with an aleph. A belt which holds a person in is called an azor. Ozer Yisrael Bigvura. The word, the number 10 of her says also comes from the word eser, is also from that same cognate. Because eser is a 10, is a set. Right? So then, in other words, we take the Chag HaOsav, we take the lessons of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and we bring it all together in Shmini Atzeres. Shmini, the 8th day, which is an Atzeres. It's to take it, it's to put it all together. It's to put it all together. That is the Chag HaOsav. We gather together all of our spiritual acquisitions from an entire year. And now we hold on to it for one day. And that's why there are no extra mitzvahs on Shmini Atzeres. It's only a din of Yontiv. It's like Shavuos. Because the point of it is to take everything we got and to put it all together and to understand that all of this leads to our ability to understand and to learn Torah. And that is what the Yontiv of Shmini Atzeres, of Simchas Torah is all about. But the dancing on Simchas Torah is different than the dancing on Sukkot. Because everybody has a piece of the action in Torah. Whether the person learns Aleph Beis or he's Rabbi Kiva, it's Hashem's Torah, which is bigger than all of us. That's why we say in the davening, and this is Svasemis, I mean, it's not the taich of the words, but both the Svasemis and the brother of the Goin says it in the Malas HaTorah. The same chalkeinu b'sarasecho. Say this every day in davening. Kacheinu b'mitzvosecho, the same chalkeinu b'sarasecho. The translation, the meaning of the words is give us that our place in life should be in Torah. But v'sein chalkeinu b'sarasecho also means that every person has his chelek in Torah. Depending where he is, whether he can learn Aleph Beis, or Chumash, or Mishnayos, or only Gemara, or Gemara with Rishonim, or Sisrei Torah, in that order. He has a chelik in Torah. And a person dances and rejoices on Simchas Torah because of that awareness that Hashem said, this is who I am. Torah is my will, my essence, and I am giving you a piece of that. A person's neshama is a chelik eleka mimal, is a piece, as it were, connected to God. And how is a person connected to God? Through God's Torah. We cannot touch Hashem, right? How could you, it says, boy tidbakt. How could a person be dovak, cleave to Hashem? You are cleaved to his Torah. You learn his Torah. And Torah is something which starts us off as a little kid and takes us till our old age. The Pasuk says in Mishlei, B'salechecha tancha ischa. When you go, the Torah will guide you. B'shach b'cha, when you go to sleep, doesn't mean it. Everybody goes to sleep at some point in their life, hopefully after many years. Tishmar alecha. V'hekitzaitza, when a person wakes up for Tchiyas HaMesim, hitisichecha, this will enable you to speak. So the dancing, Simchas Torah, is Ashreinu Ma Toiv Chelkeinu. Not only how good is our place in this world, but how good is our V'sein Chelkeinu B'Seirasecha. Person who gets engaged, person who gets married, he has a life. He's delirious with joy. And that is the joy that we have on Simchas Torah. In Meir Yeshiva, in Europe, Rabbi Rucham would say that he could see a bacher's level of learning by how he would dance on Simchas Torah. Is it, so hurry up to our coffers already, you know, come on. People gotta eat. If you're in a hurry to get it over with, let's move on, you know? And you have all kinds of from excuses. The ladies are waiting, and then it's just all true. But how much do you mean it, and how much is it because, you know, let's go. I'll tell you a story which I've told over before. I met a fellow once came to my shul, says to me, very wealthy man. He says, you know, she walks in about 10:30. It's like a kofas. He says to me, you know, I davened the Sikhin. He's all proud of himself. Davened the Sikhin, and I'm finished with Musaf, and I'm good. I said to him, I said, you know, I'm really not impressed. He said, what do you mean? I said, let me tell you a story. So Moshe Feinstein's grandson, who was very close to one Yom Kippur, Moshe didn't see him till Mincha. So he asked him after Yom Kippur, he says, he writes the story about himself. Moshe asked him, he says, where were you today? He says, I got up, I davened b'sikin, and I learned. He said, Yingala, your job on Yom Kippur is to be in shul, not to daven b'sikin and learn. So I told this wealthy man, I said, you know, your job on Simchas Torah is to be with your kids in shul, not to get it over with. He says, you know, you're the first guy who ever told me something, told me off. I said, well, probably the last also. He's so wealthy, this guy. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, what does it tell you? Is it, I do my 7 akafas and it's, I'm over with it? So I was yitzit, I did what it says in the book. It's like, married, right? Gets married. Do you imagine? He's getting married. He says to his wife, listen here. You know, I'm not into this dancing stuff. You know, we'll have a meal. Yeah, have the band play for 5 minutes and we're good. We had dancing, right? You know, people got to go home. If you're happy by your wedding, you want the band to go on forever. I'm not saying that, you know, this is Ray Shiva. I'm not weighing in on that. But how happy are you? How happy are you? How much does Torah mean to you? How much does it talk to you? How much are you aware that it's going to guide you? It's going to hold your hand. It's going to connect you to Hashem. It's going to keep you steady even in your old age. And for some people, you could be filled with Torah, that there's nothing else there. I saw a story today, that plots. Gadol Ador, from about 130 years ago, was Rabbi Yitzchak Khan inspector. He was a Gadol Ador, he was the Pesach Ador, he was it. Kovner Rov. Okay. So this is a story that Shmuel Rozovsky told over. And In those days, this was in the 1880s, 1870s, Russia was a pretty nasty place. A little better today. In any event, they had whatever, the Tsar was about to come up with another one of his decrees. And Rabbi Hoshana went to talk to, whether it was him or one of his big ministers. And he wanted, the people advised him, told him, he said, like, ask him, learn in Russian 2 words to say, how are you? So, like, he sees that you're trying. Okay? Rabbi Hoshana was a goin olam. He knew Kol Torah Kula. And he learned the words that he chazed. Gets there, and he forgot the 2 words. What do you do? So he remembered 2 other words in Russian, which were, what's your name? Now, this was not good. People around him were like, this is not a good story. But there was a Yid, Rabbi Yaakov Mazah, who was the Rav of Moscow, who spoke Russian, and he was the interpreter, and he chapped what was going on. And he said, no, what the rabbi is saying is he wants to bless you, so he wants to know your name and your mother's name so he can give you a proper Jewish blessing. Okay, that was good. He saved the day. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story was this guy in Olam, 2 words of Russian didn't stick in his head. It didn't go in. It did not go in. He didn't have place for anything else. It's like if you go sometimes today, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, we're Zoycha in our door. Okay, and from one day to the next, he won't remember because he has room and he remembers Kol Torah Kula. So he can't remember me. That's right. He can't remember you. He can't remember what you told him last week and the week before in the Shtus and the Mishigas and whatever it is. Why? Because there's no place for anything else. He's in love with Torah, and he can't think about anything else. It doesn't stick. So if you have that awareness, that understanding, that joy, and I got news for you. All of you are young, Baruch Hashem, but one day you're not going to be young. How do I know? Because you look around at all the people, you see somebody walking, he's walking with a stick, right? You go, oh, I never. You think he was always like that? When he was young, he was able to slam dunk better than you. But you just look at his sticks, you think that's where he was forever. It's not true. So everybody ages. And the Torah will hold your hand, old man. I heard a story on first day of Chol Hamoed Sukkos. Somebody came to visit me. He was a grandson of Dr. Joseph Kamenetsky. Dr. Joseph Kamenetsky was one of the, if you're within 1,000 miles of him in Gan Eden, you're in a good neighborhood. He built schools, Jewish elementary schools in every city in the United States that had, I think, a population of 5,000 Jews. From Friday, didn't matter. That was his job in life. And for, I think, 40 years, every Sunday, he would get on a Greyhound bus and travel across the United States, opening another school, another school, another school, another school. Okay? Tzaddik, famous Dr. Joseph Kamenetsky, Talmud of Yeshivat University. Amazing. So his grandson came to visit me on Chol Hamoed. At the end of his life, Dr. Kamenetsky moved to Israel, and, he aged. And there was a time when he was no longer with it, as they say. And he would tell his grandson, just bring me the Sefer of Rabbi Isaac Sher. Rabbi Isaac Sher was the Yeshiva of Slobodka, the son-in-law of Alta from Slobodka. And his grandson said, and they would open the Sefer to read. His grandfather was able to read at that point anymore. This was a person who was responsible for whatever a big portion of Yiddishkeit in America today is because of Dr. Joseph Kamenetsky. A lot of other people have, but he was across the United States. There's nobody like him. Nobody like him. And The minute his grandson would start to read from the Sefer, he was a different person. Wasn't the biggest Talmid Chacham, but Torah was what he was. And for every single one of us sitting in this room, it's the same thing. And if you understand and you remember when you sing Baruch Elokeinu Shebranu L'chvaydai, Kadosh Baruch Hu created us so that we can make the world into a place that shows that he created it and that it shows honor to him. This is God's world because we as Jews act according to his direction. V'hivdilanu min ha'toyim, and he divided us, separated us. Toyim is not written with a tess. Toyim with a tess is he made a mistake. Toyim with a tough means that your whole way of life is off. Because Baruch Hu set us aside. V'nosan lanu Torahs emes v'chaye olam nota b'sechenu. He gave us a Torah of truth, and because he gave us the truth, he gave us the ultimate ability to live in this world. Put it in us. Put those seeds within us, and it's our job during the year to make those seeds grow. That's what we sing. Torahs Hashem Tamima, Meshivas Nefesh. Most medicines will cure some part of the body, some limb, some system. But Torah is Meshivas Nefesh. Gives you back your life. I want to tell you something. Some of you stay learning, many of you don't. When you go through life and you're going to be connected to Torah, at whatever level and whatever time slot and part of your life, that it fits. If you're connected, it's Meshivas Nefesh. It will enable you to withstand and to go through some of the most difficult situations in life. Lulei, Soiroscha, Sha'ashuai. Had it not been that Torah, your Torah, God's Torah, is my pleasure, as avadati b'ani, I would be lost in my difficulty. Ani does not necessarily mean poverty. Poverty too. But you go through life, not everything is peachy keen. In your marriage, with your children, with your health, with your parnosa, when you're connected to Torah, that is your lifeline. It'll keep your eyes open. Eidos Hashem ne'emona machkimas pesi. And the main event is Pikudei Hashem Yesharim. The commandments of God are straight, Mesamchei Leiv. They make you happy. And when things get rough and you sit down with a blot Gemara, you are a different person. That's the reality. They're Mesamchei Leiv, they gladden your heart, and that is the simcha that we have on Simchas Torah. It belongs to every single one of us. It is Morasha Hilas Yaakov, and it is that joy and that happiness that we celebrate on Simchas Torah as the culmination of the Yom Tovim of Tishrei and the Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and we daven to Hashem, V'hasienu, Hashem Elokeinu, as Birkas Ma'adecha, May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us carry the bracha of our Moedim, and there's no greater bracha than that of Simchas Torah. And Simchas Torah, as the Mefarshim say specifically about Torah Shebal Peh, the Gemara that you're learning, and that is what we are dancing for. Pikudei Hashem Yesharim Samchei Lev.